Hey guys, it's Casey Greek. I'm over here at Impact Solutions headquarters. We're getting ready to do a track smack with Quad Radio. We're going to run a fine-tooth comb through the GNCC.
Hello and welcome to the voice of the ATV Racing Nation, quadradio.net. I'm Rodney Tomlin, and this is Quad Radio Track Smack, being presented to you today by our good friends at Root River Racing. And don't forget, our ATV motocross friends have got some great things going on over there as far as the Ride with Root River Racing program. All you got to do is follow them on Facebook and check out all the details, and you too can be a part of the Ride with Root River Racing program for 2019. We also want to take this opportunity to say a special thanks to our good friends at 88 Live to Ride, racing toward rider safety. And a special thanks to our good friends at DP Brakes. We want to know what's stopping you. And as Casey told us, we've got GNCC Track Smack coming up. Wow, what a great start to the 2019 season. We have somehow or another progressed from the off-season now to the preseason as we roll into 2019, man. It's a great day to be alive, I think, in the ATV Racing Nation. A lot of great things going on. We talked about ATV motocross there a couple of weeks ago, and today on tap, we've got a little GNCC, some woods racing to talk about today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we went right, like you said, 2 weeks ago we were in the off season, and 2 weeks later here we are, 4th of January, and training's full effect. You see the guys, posting videos. Everyone's down in Florida. I know Joel, is down, I believe, in North Carolina. Walker's riding, Johnny Gallagher, Chris Forch. All these guys are starting to pound in and put in that first week's worth of training and get things going. So excited to see, what all these guys are going to bring to the table this year. You got some young guns coming into the class, and with some high hopes and a lot of determination and youth on their side. Last year kind of proved to everyone, and no offense whatsoever, but that Walker's human. And I think you and I and the rest of the field were starting to wonder if he was human. And he is, not to take anything away from the guy. He's unbelievable, and he still proved that it doesn't matter if he's human or not, he's still going to win races and be a champion. So, hats off to that guy and a stellar year. Bryson Neal, pretty good year for him. Really, wrapping up his win in Georgia there. Unbelievable for him, and I think it proved to him and gave him a lot of confidence moving forward. Old sneaky snake, Jared McClure, another consistent guy that it was just there solid all the time. You can always count on Jared for a win and to be a consistent podium guy. And then let's talk a little bit. Chris Borch knocking off Snowshoe, getting the monkey off his back. The fire is lit. That guy never ceases to amaze me. A lot of people were naysaying him and, all this stuff. But I think with the monkey off his back, he's definitely going to be a threat next year. And, you got the Gator, always there. Got to win. Going to be another guy that's always a threat. Hunter Hart, I don't want to say he demolished that XC2 class, but man, what a stellar year. And coming into the XC1 class, I know he's got a lot of high hopes of being in that top 5. And he's a guy that is perfectly capable of being in the top 5 and being a threat for podiums also. So you put 7 or 8 guys that are consistent podium threats, and I think we're going to see battles and races like we never seen before.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think maturity has a lot to do with that. Just looking at the new guns, from while that's fresh on the mind right now, Hunter Hart, I expect to be like you say, a major competitor, a top 5 threat. I look for him to even be a top 3 threat, maybe even a possible league contender and possible winner. He's got a lot of possibility, a lot of opportunity, and we don't know what's going on there. But it all lends itself back to the maturity aspect of it. It took even Walker Fowler a little while to learn how to win and win consistently. We see that it's taken a lot of these guys a while to learn, and no one's really learned how to do it consistently so far except for Walker. And then, of course, Chris Borge back in the day of we know that he was able to do it consistently. So we'll see if Walker can keep that consistency. I think the maturity level is going to be a big part of that. But I think when we look at it, you mentioned just 6 names right off the top of the bat: Walker Fowler, Jared McClure, Chris Borge, Bryson Neal. I don't think you mentioned Cole Richardson, but that's one that we, for some reason flies under the radar, but I don't think he's going to be flying under there for so long. And then, of course, Adam McGill. All 6 of those guys taking wins in 2018. And that's a feat that's only been accomplished a couple of times in GNCC racing history. And that goes to show you just exactly how deep the level of competition is. It also goes to show you how consistent Walker Fowler is, as he didn't finish any worse than 5th place all season long. He had a 5th, a 3rd, a 5th, a 4th, 2/3, a 2nd, and the rest were all wins. When you ride consistently like that, that's the maturity level, I think, that is playing a big role in it. But back to what I was saying about the number of winners and the depth of this field, it only gets deeper when we throw in the names of like Hunter Hart, and I'm not sure what Austin Abney's going to do, but if he was thrown into those likes or something like that, then you got guys that are getting seasoned right now, like Devin Feehan. I expect that he's going to be a little bit of a threat this year. Marty Christofferson, he's still a rider that I don't think we've seen the best of yet either. So, that field gets deeper as we roll into 2019, I think.
Yeah, talking about, Devin Feehan, this will be his 2nd full-time year in XC1. I've actually been talking to him quite a bit, and dude, that kid, and I say a kid, I don't even know how old he is, but he's a kid in my eyes because I'm starting to get old and I got gray in my beard and all that good stuff. But he is one of the most organized individuals I've ever met. I've gotten 2 off-season updates from him, just through sponsorship stuff. I've talked to him. Great guy. And he's already been on the grindstone. He was grinding in December before I felt like anyone was, and putting his program together. And I think he's going to be a threat also. Definitely a top 5 contender. On to Marty Christofferson. Man, for what he had going on last year, I feel like I'm somewhat of a personal friend with him. We talk here and there, and when we're at the races, we talk quite a bit. And he built a house last year, and, he works a full-time job, and he's got all this stuff going on. So I don't feel like his devotion to racing was full effect last year because he had a lot going on. And with this next year coming, he told me, he said, I'm going to be devoted to racing and put a program together that I need to have to go out and be a contender, for championships and race wins. And so I think that's what's going to happen this year with him. He's going to be, someone that's going to be a threat and be better than what he was last year for sure. I did leave Cole out, not on purpose. For some reason, like you said, he kind of flies under the radar, but the guy did get a win. And he showed speed time and time again. The injury-plagued year he had the year before kind of just almost took him out of the radar, but he definitely inserted himself there at the Black Sky. What was it? The High Point event. I can't remember the name of it. Mason-Dixon. Mm-hmm. And inserted himself firmly, battling all that time with Walker and proving that he's one to be, reckoned with. So,
and one thing to point out, and some that are closer to the situation might know, but he had a rather personally adverse year that last year from a personal standpoint. He had a lot of obstacles off the track as well as on the track, and I have to commend him on that with working through what he had to work through. Anytime you've got any kind of an issue off track and you got to try to work through it on track like that, and to be able to succeed is pretty impressive. That only lends itself to me to believe that we're going to see even bigger things out of Cole if he can get a program put together this year in the offseason, which if results are any indication from last year, I think he should have some support, and we should be able to see him out there. And hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him, see what the 2019 season is going to be looking like for him. But, yeah, a big player there. Again, I just wanted to throw that in about Cole.
Yeah, definitely. Adversity was definitely not on his side last year. But he worked through it, and I think things are settled down for him, and he's going to be able to focus on it. And I think he's got support. I think he's got what he needs to do it. His mechanic, Aaron, stellar guy, heck of a mechanic, and the stuff he does, I'd call him an engineer. The guy's badass. He does a lot of stuff on his own, and Cole's got bikes that are phenomenal. So big things that I expect, big things out of Cole next year. Honestly, I expect him to be a podium contender and possibly a championship contender.
Quite likely. Consistency will play a huge role in that, and I think Cole is one of those riders that is capable of the consistency, especially if he's got the right program behind him and everything works well for him. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that for sure. As I mentioned, Casey, we had a great year in depth of talent. Next year's coming up. One rider that we really haven't mentioned a lot, Wesley Wolf. It's a rider talks so much about hypes. There was so much hype coming into the Wesley Wolf program over the previous years. And then last year, the hype kind of fell flat. And maybe, I don't want to say Wesley's performance did, but when you take into consideration what his adversities was, what he had to work through last year with the changes in his program and everything, I think that Wesley actually had a pretty successful season, all things considered. And I don't know what this offseason has been like for him. I don't know what the preseason or what the future even holds for him. But, Wesley's another one of those riders that kind of hangs in the balance of GNCC and ATVMX, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And Wesley's deal, he works a lot. And, his dad cracks the whip and he's got to work. And so he doesn't get to put the effort into training and doing the things. I did talk to him a little bit earlier this year, or I guess late last year. And sounds like he's going to be able to put a little, put some effort and work towards racing and being more prepared for racing. Wesley, there's no doubt in speed. I've preached this to anyone that asks me about Wesley. The speed isn't an issue. I believe firmly that the biggest issue with Wesley would be his maturity. And being this is his third year in the pro class and stuff, I would like to see that he starts to excel and move from that bubble of 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th place in GNCC and insert himself into that top 5. Obviously, there's only so many places in that top 5, but I feel like Wesley has the talent and the abilities to be there also. So growing up a little bit for him, not to say that he's a bad kid or something like that, but it's just that racing knowledge. And we've seen it develop, with all these guys. Chris Borch, took him a few years. Walker took him a few years to get to that point. And he's got the talent of those guys. So I think big things will come from him in the future. And we'll see a lot that happens. Just a matter of, I think this is a year for Wesley where it's time to shit or get off the pot.
Right. And I think he's in position. We'll see what happens for him right now. Another name that, man, It's kind of odd. You would think that this name would be thrown around quite a bit by now, especially if you followed his his rise to the youth ranks, to the amateur ranks. Cody Collier, the 201. He rides that number. That was a number that he earned as the top morning class rider whenever he was a schoolboy class rider, and he beat all the guys in that morning class. And he's donned that number ever since and worked his way through the the college class, into the Pro-Am class, and now right into the XC1 Pro class. And he's been here for a few years now, a handful of years. And though we haven't seen anything out of Cody, I think he's one of those riders that, again, we're kind of just waiting to see something break loose for this guy, because we know he's got the potential. We know he's got the talent. And we know he's got the speed. It's just, will it all unfold before our eyes and we get to finally see it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the same thing with him. It's a maturity thing. And I don't care who you are or what it is. You could be the most dominant XC2 rider out there and, finish on the podium in XC1 from XC2, but when you move to that next row and you have to line up on the line with the likes of Walker Fowler, Chris Borch, there's 11 championships, right? Or 10 championships between the two of them. Seasoned veterans that know what's going on. Adam McGill, Johnny Gallagher. It changes things. And when you're not producing third overall and fourth overall and fifth overall that you're used to achieving from the second row, it sets you back and it puts you in your seat a little bit. And it takes some time to revamp that and get yourself to the next level to be back up there. So Cody's another one that he's kind of in the same boat as Wesley, maturing, growing as a rider and a racer, as a professional racer, and learning how to let races come to them. The pressure is not there. I mean, there's pressure in XC2, obviously, but the pressure of winning in XC1 isn't there. The better you do in the XC1 class from the second row, it's just an extra pat on the back. As long as you're dominating your class, which seems, like a little less of a pressure cooker. But you get in the XC1 class, the game changes, and you see the results change as that happens, with some, and some it doesn't. So I think it's just a matter of time with him, but he's in the same boat. He's kind of at that year where he's got to start making things happen, and his family support him very well. They have an awesome program. His mom and dad are awesome people. I talked to him quite a bit, and I think he could also insert himself into that top 5 too.
Right. And as we mentioned, this has been one of the, we've talked about the talent pools being deep before, but results proving this year that we had a deep talent pool. The last times that we had that was 1983 and then again in 1997. We'll talk a little bit about that, as well as XC2 and some movers and shakers are going to be taking a step up into that class when we return here on Quad Radio Track Smack.
So you ready for snowshoe this weekend, Brandon? Oh, yeah. Are you? That's cool.
Stop!
Billy? It's supposed to be pretty nasty this weekend up on Snowshoe Mountain. Stop it, Billy! I'm pretty pumped. Put the brakes on! DP brakes. Good enough to stop my ATV, his ATV, and hell, it'll even stop a Billy.
Quad Radio is brought to you in part by Root River Racing. Don't forget to check out the 2019 Ride with Root River program on their Facebook page. Deadlines are coming soon. Also, want to say thanks to Rockford Fosgate Tylube Honda ATV Racing, a proud supporter of Quad Radio. And Quad Radio is brought to you in part by B&R Motorsports, exhaust and suspension systems out of North Lima, Ohio. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at JSR Moto Designs, custom Nerf bar nets and apparel, and be watching for custom Quad Radio swag and apparel as well, hats, Voice of the Racing Nation tees, hoodies, and more. And now back to more Track Smack. And welcome back, Quad Radio Tracks Mac. Rodney Tom along with Casey Greek as we continue to talk a little bit about GNCC racing. And Casey, we've been talking a lot about the pro class. We're about ready to shift gears into some other things, XC2 and maybe some College A stuff. But before we do that, we talked about the talent pool and the depth of it. Just to give you an idea of how what it's been like over the course of the time since GNCC's championships in ATV racing with GNCC. 1983, the first season, there were 6 different winners, as there was here in 2018. However, there were only 6 races in that first championship season, and the way that one broke down, I think it was Dan Vaya, I believe, won. Tom Tokay, which was a name that we remember from years ago. Donnie Scud Huggins, Teddy Trey, another name, Chuck Fritz, and Patrick Henderson were all winners that first year in GNCC ATV racing. 1997 was the second year that we saw that, the second time that we saw it in history. And, you know, it's hard to believe that we look back and, you know, whenever you think about, and I know when a lot of people talk about the good old days of GNCC, and we're living the good old days right now, a new era of that, if you will. But the era of Barry Hawk in 1997 taking a win. Chad Duvall, Matt Smiley, Bill Balance, William Yoakley, and Jeff Seagott. Those were 6 different winners in that season. And you look at those names right now and you think about that, and to think right now, the names that we just talked about previous to the break there, Casey, we'll be looking back on those names in 10 or 15 or 20 years or however long ago it's been, and thinking the same thing that we think, I think now about Walker and Adam McGill and all these guys that, you know, are just doing what they're doing right now. So pretty impressive stuff there. So I think it was a rather historic year in 2018 as far as ATV racing was concerned in GNCC Pro Class racing.
Yeah, definitely. With 6 different winners, you know, we haven't seen that in quite some time. The dominance of Bill Balance, the dominance of Chris Borch, and then the dominance of Walker Fowler. So to get, you know, we didn't get a different champion this year, but we did get 6 different race winners, and that adds adversity and that adds flavor and fight to this championship. So I think going in next year, maybe we'll see 13 different winners.
Hey, you know, it's a possibility, and definitely consistency would start to pay out there. You want to be very consistent. I
will go on a limb and say if there's 13 different winners next year, Jared McClure wins the championship.
Hey, it's a possibility. I mean, that makes it and you know, the great thing about it is we may not ever be able to dispute that.
No, I think that's pretty far-fetched, but hey, it's good to dream.
And
we can have another 6 winners next year, and you know, just a battle. That's all. You know, as a fan and supporter of GNCC and racing in general, just the battle. That's all I care about.
Right. I'm there with you. And to see some of those guys getting their first wins like that last season was pretty good. And Chris Borch, the first win in like 3 or 4 years since he had gotten his. So I think that was pretty neat. But moving on to other things, as we talked about in the XC2 class, 2018 was pretty much dominated by Hunter Hart. There was 2 races that he finished 16th, which I would go out on a limb and say he broke down in those 2 races. One race, he raced the pro class, which he got 6th in the pro class in that class. But all the rest of the time, Hunter was the dominant factor there. He was the what everybody chased, the rabbit, I guess, that all the hounds were chasing in the XC2 Pro-Am class. But I think that made a very strong and hungry XC2 class that will lend itself to some great racing for 2019.
Yeah, definitely. Austin Abney, XC2. He won. I think he won early on or was right there. Finished on the podium consistently, inserted himself as a true threat for that championship. John Galata, a little bit of an up and down year, but talent and speed are definitely not something that he lacks. I look for him to be very, very competitive and probably almost a shoe-in for that championship. Obviously, Austin Abney is going to have something to say about that. One guy moving into that class that I think is going to insert himself right into the podium and be a consistent top guy is going to be Ronnie Rush and Matthew Blankenship. Both those guys showed, huge potential. Ronnie didn't have the year that he had hoped for.
And you say that he didn't have the year he hoped for, but man, the kid got 4 wins in that college A class and still finished 6th overall. I mean, that's saying something.
But I know what he expects. And when you're as dominant as him in his younger years, if that makes any sense, he killed it on a 250 and was very, always there, and with the likes of, having John Galata Jr., right there with him. And so those guys come through, and for Ronnie, I think he expected to go out there and dominate every race. And so that's what I say lightly. He didn't have the year that he expected. I think he did great, and I expect him to be, very consistent next year and towards the front of that XC2 class. Matthew Blankenship kind of come out of the under the radar and inserted himself into that college A class, and I mean, phenomenal rider. He's got a good support group around him. I know he does a lot with B&R, and he trains a lot with Johnny. And, hanging out with Johnny kind of brings the likes of Walker Fowler, Chris Borch, and these guys are all going to be huge mentors for Blankenship. So another guy that's going to be, up front in that class, and there's no lack of talent that is coming from any of these classes, and XC1, XC2, College A, and we look down into even the 10 o'clock race. Another young gun moving into that morning race is Lane McCormick, and we could do a whole show on Lane and the talent that kid has. It's phenomenal. Absolutely dominant in the youth ranks, and I don't see that slowing down at any time. He's got a great support network with him. His mom, obviously, really, really fast and a very good WXC racer. His dad, good mechanic, and with their background and his racing background, the options are endless for that kid, and he's gonna be the next Walker Fowler.
Right.
Without a doubt.
It's going to be interesting to see. I see where you're going with that thought, and I understand that. I really do. And but I know that the talent pool is deep, and time will certainly tell the story, and that's going to be a fun one to watch. There's no doubt in my mind, Casey, as we look at some of these other names. Matt Lindell's another name for some reason that just keeps sticking out in my head. I don't know what it was about that kid last year, but he really makes me feel like there might be something that he might be bringing to the table for 2019.
Yeah, definitely. I think he showed it last year. He was competitive. I believe he won quite a few races. I remember hearing his name quite a bit. You have to forgive me that I'm not 100% up to par with everybody. My daily job sometimes gets in the way.
Matt got a lot of seconds. Matt didn't get any wins last year. He got a lot of seconds and some thirds. So he was battling in that XC2 class.
I know I heard his name a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're right. Yeah. And that's why, because he was in the thick and the heart of it. And one reason that I expect to see something out of him this year is because a lot of seasoning took place there I think last year. I think there was a lot of things learned by a lot of guys last year that they're going to be able to bring to the table for this year.
Yeah. And another one that kind of flies under the radar a little bit, but I think got some definitely seasoning last year would be Drew Landers.
Right.
He put in some solid results, with that Coastal Racing team, and has kind of inserted himself into this next year being a threat in that XC2 class. So I think there's some big things in store for him. I think he's got a solid program coming in for next year, and it's going to be one of the guys that is going to be in that battle and challenging for wins, if not championships. Lindell, Abney, John Galata, Ronnie Rush. I mean, the list is still the same, as we go from XC1 to XC2. There's talent and there's threat, and the racing should be incredible. And I think that's what it comes down to is it's going to be a big question mark every weekend. You're not going to be like, this is who's going to win.
Well, as we look down through some of the results, we see names of ATV motocross stars starting to pop up there. Joel Hetrick's name, Noah Mickelson, Hayden Mickelson, those guys currently racing, and Wesley Wolf obviously currently racing the ATV Motocross National Championship. There are a few guys that have made the crossover. Dan Dakota, however you say it, I can't remember. All right.
Yeah.
But Dan, he's making the transition, and there's several names and several folks that we've seen over the last few years that have been making the transition. And then I was talking to a few ATV MX guys, and they're like, "Hey, what we need to do is to start getting some of these." XC guys to start coming over to ATV MX, because a lot of them do train with a lot of the ATV racers in the off season or in the preseason and things like that. So several of them do have moto skills, and so we're starting to hear some possibility of some crossover, not only from the ATV motocross side of things. From what I understand, we're going to be seeing a little more of Joel Hetrick in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. You're a little closer to the situation, so you might be able to tell me. I plan on going down and talking to him in the next couple of weeks, but you might be able to give me a little insight into that. Yeah,
definitely. No, Joel's hooked. He wants to do more GNCC style racing and woods racing, and I think he got his feet wet this year and learned a lot. And I don't see Joel being a consistent 12th place finisher. I see him learning it and figuring it out and starting to be a threat with these guys. Not doing it full time makes it a lot harder. And these guys are good at what they do. But I've seen some grumblings, Walker, Johnny, Chris Borch, these guys talking about doing some of the ATV motocrosses. Come on. I mean, how awesome would that be? The perfect storm, come out and race that new, stock premier class and battle with Chad and Thomas and, all these guys that are going to race that class. I did hear just a little grumbling the other day that Chad was down practicing on a stock bike, which was probably one of his first rides on a stock bike in a million years. And he was on a moto track, and Chris Borch and Johnny were there, and him and Chris were pretty close in speed. So right there just tells you that these guys have the talent. And, if Chris was on a full-blown motocross bike, his speed's going to be great. But is his bike going to be as fine-tuned as someone like Chad Wienen, that his primary job is racing ATV motocross? No. And the same thing. We kind of forget, but Chad raced Ironman a couple of years ago, and obviously his bike was good, but it wasn't as good as someone like Walker Fowler or Chris Borch or Johnny or any of those guys. No. These guys are individually excellent at their disciplines, and crossing over is only going to make them better riders and better racers at that. So here's my invitation. If it means anything to any of you, come and race ATV motocross. If you need any help, if you need anything, I will be there to help you. Just because I would love to see Chad Wienen, Thomas Brown, Chris Borch, Johnny Gallagher, Walker Fowler battle on a motocross track just as much as I would love to see them battle at a GNCC. And I think these guys' talent range is obviously well enough to do both. And no better way than to do it on stock bikes and support that, stock classes that ATV motocross is bringing in next year. And, if you don't want to do it on stock bikes, then race the pro class. I mean, that don't bother me either. I think any one of those guys can be competitive in either discipline. And we're seeing the likes of the ATV motocross guys kind of transferring and doing more GNCC stuff. So now I think it would be a good time this year to see some of the GNCC guys return the favor and come over and do some ATV motocross.
I agree. It kind of sets the stage for the quad world war that might be brewing. You never know. You might want to know how to do different disciplines.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little. We could do a flat track Friday night, a motocross, supercross style race Saturday afternoon, evening, and, a cross country race on Sunday. We talked
and
about
I'm
some
going
venues that could hold
I'm
that.
I'm trademarking it today. It's the Quad World War.
There you go. And that's what we need. We need these guys to unite.
Well,
personally, I know there isn't any friction between the two, but meshing together, Nick Janusa does a great job at it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about bringing all these guys together on a platform that is exciting and fun and utilized in his backyard. That's how simple it could be to get all these guys together. Is, he throws that 90 race, a turkey derby, I think he calls it. And,
right.
Chris Borge, Joel Hetrick, obviously Nick Janusa himself, Johnny Gallagher, Hunter Hart was there, Lane McCormick was there. There was a slew of GNCC and ATV motocross guys there to head off together. And the results proved that, it was on a motocross track, but I believe Chris Borch was third place. Nick won and Joel Hedrick was second. And I watched the video. Unfortunately, I don't ever get to go to it, but the smiles are never wiped off those guys' faces. And that's what we need in racing, is these guys being happy and everyone, smiling and enjoying the time that we have as racers and fans and promoters and so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah. Be happy and go race because you're happy to go race. And
that's it.
Sometimes it's nice to forget that it's a job.
I agree with you. So be on the lookout. The Quad Radio presentation of the Quad World War. We'll have more details coming soon. That's just I'm getting excited, about to get goosebumps already about this, Casey. But, with that, my friend, that brings us, I guess, to some closing shots and everything right now. Anything that, one thing that we haven't really talked about quickly is I think the schedule that we'll be looking at. We'll be getting underway with round one, the Big Buck GNCC. That's coming up February 23rd and 24th. Man, that's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy. I felt like 3 weeks ago, it seemed like the season was so far away, and here we are in January, and we go racing in February. So as for me, I've definitely seen that side that racing's almost here. I got 3 phones going between the shop phone and my 2 cell phones, and I think yesterday I probably spent 7 hours on the phone and an hour working just between ordering parts and ordering tire balls and ordering shocks and just getting people going and getting ready for next year. So I feel like people are on the ball this year and they're getting their stuff going earlier, which is a huge help to everyone, that we're not rushing at the last minute. And it's going to make everyone that much more competitive. It's been a busy off season for me. And I think as of everyone, that there was really no downtime. We got done with GNCC at Ironman, and it was just back to the grindstone, start testing. We've done quite a few tests this winter already. We have some huge news about to drop here within the next couple of days that I can't really mention as of right now, but it's going to be incredible. I look forward to what's to come for Impact Solutions and myself and our riders. We've really focused on inserting ourselves with a smaller group of riders, but a fierce group of riders. Obviously, we're still doing service and performance, stuff for everybody, but our close group of people that we're working with is small, but it is very mighty. And I think it's gonna shine next year. So I couldn't be more excited for 2019 and beyond, and our riders that we have and the support that we're receiving and from our customers and our valued customers. That's my number one goal here at the shop, is to make sure I cater to all my customers and answer the phone and return emails and do all that stuff. And that's why I usually spend more time at my desk than in front of my workbench.
Gotcha. I don't blame you a bit, man. You sound like a busy man. You're going to have a busy season. As we look at the schedule, we've got e-mountain bike races. There's going to be like 6 of those races, I think 6 or 7 of those races here this year. Micro full schedule. They're going to be racing all races, but snowshoe, I believe. So 50cc ATV racers, you guys get to go to all the GNCCs here in 2018 or 19, excuse me. About the only change I can see to the schedule is the fact that we, for 2019, is that hopefully we will get to go to Black Sky, New York this year if the weather is cooperative with us, and Powerline Park, obviously, off the schedule to nothing, obviously, that we did. There's just some big changes going on over there as far as the property is concerned, so no more Powerline Park, and they're in the process of searching for a new property on that one right now, so that one's a TBA round. But all in all, looks like a pretty cut and dry, kosher GNCC schedule. Doesn't seem to be any real surprises that are going to be thrown at us this year so far.
Yeah, definitely. I think the surprises were thrown at us pretty early, not schedule-wise. I think the surprise to a lot of people was e-bikes inserting and UTVs exerting. I think Carrie Joe kind of said it best. I don't think it was to be offensive towards UTVs whatsoever. I think they've outgrown the capabilities in a sense of an event at GNCC. I think as UTV guys, and I support UTVs greatly, I've built hundreds of UTVs and done enormous amounts of R&D and development on the earlier Can-Ams, and some of the stuff that we worked on years ago is stuff that you guys are racing now. So I think as a UTV community, you guys should almost pat yourselves on the back for growing a sport that has outgrown the largest off-road series in the country. And if you guys can sit back and just think about what I said,
you're right. You're absolutely right.
Pat yourself on the back. You guys support it, and you guys are the ones doing it. And it's not easy to go racing UTVs. If it was easy, more and more people would be doing it. And I guess that's kind of contradicting in a sense, because more and more people are doing it, and it's growing so fast. And which brings us to, say, the AXCC series that's going to cater to ATVs and UTVs only. That's the showcase that UTVs need, and that's going to be a huge step, and that's a step in the right direction for UTVs. And even your local series, I feel like, are going to grow with not having a place at GNCC now. The Wexer series, the IXCR series, these are relatively large local series that I'm very familiar with. I support both series, huge, and I think those series are going to see an increase in their UTV entries and competitiveness and sponsorship. So don't take it as an insult from GNCC or anyone else, but go out and support your local series and, try some of these AXCC races. Johnny Greaves is having a pretty cool series with some ice racing and different things up there. So, yeah, I think UTVs are on a climb. And like I said, you guys did this, and not in a bad way.
All righty. Well, I think that's going to bring us to a close here today. If you want more information on the American Cross Country scene, you can go to their website. You can also check out their Facebook page. For UTV riders, we'll be talking a little bit more about that series and getting depth in that as the season goes on. And also, just want to let you folks know, if you've got an ATV-friendly schedule, you can email schedules at quadradio.net, and we'll get that schedule up for you on the schedules page. We got that going, getting that started up right now. So as we get more schedules, we'll be loading those up. So you'll be able to go to the quadradio.net web pages and click on there and find out where the races are near you in the upcoming weeks and weekends and things like that. So be sure and check that out, schedules at quadradio.net. Casey, anything else that you think you might need to pass along to the folks today?
yeah, if you guys, have any needs for shock stuff or anything like that, go ahead and get a hold of me. You can call me here at the shop at 740-989-2026. You can also email me at casey@impactsolutionsatv.com or social media Impact Solutions. Another little thing I did want to touch on, we are in need of a driver for the Maxxis truck. If you guys have anyone that you feel would fit that role, CDL, good person, likes to work and likes to travel, hit me up. You can email me, call me, whatever. Instagram. It's a cool job. I did it for many years. For me, it was time to slow down a little bit and focus on my family and my wife and my home and some of that stuff. But still heavily involved with that side of the Maxxis truck and the CST truck. Luckily, we have Dave Smith on board for next year. Old Digital Dave or Tire Dave, or I don't know what we're calling him nowadays, but excited to have him back on board and get these things rolling. So, like I said, not to draw it out, if you guys know anyone or need anything, get at me. I'll get you in that truck. It's a cool job. It's a good, fun job.
Most certainly is, and you get to see a lot of cool things and meet a lot of cool people. Well, Casey, appreciate you, and also just want to remind folks, be on the lookout for Quad Radio swag coming soon. Thanks to our good friends at JSR Moto Design. And with that, I'm going to say good day to you, Casey. Thanks again for being a part of TrackSmack here for GNCC, man.
Thank you. We'll see you guys at the races.
That's Casey Greek. I'm Rodney Tomlin. This is Quad Radio TrackSmack.
Quad Radio is brought to you in part by Root River Race.